As requested, here's a little video talking about some study strategies to help folks manage time. And I'll just jump in and get started. So the first thing I always recommend to students, and I recommend this because it is one way that I was successful when I was finishing up college and when I was in graduate school, is to treat school like your job. When I say that, I mean that you have set times for it, that you show up, that you do the work that you need to do, that if there are problems, you communicate them. If you cannot be there or you're having difficulty, you communicate that. When you at a workplace, you can't just not show up, right? If you're sick or if you can't be there, you communicate with your supervisor. So I tell students, if you can't come to class, if you can't do what needs to be done, you need to let me know, and preferably let me know that in advance. I understand that emergencies happen. I'm not being unreasonable, but when there's an essay due, if there's a reason that it can't be done on time, that should be communicated in advance so the problem can be addressed. So make sure that you're blocking time to do your work. And I mean this not just for online classes or synchronous classes where you need to be there for a certain amount of time, but also block out the time you need to do everything else. In addition to being present for class, you also need to read for class. You need to do the work with essays and things of that nature. I'll give you some time frames, but in some classes, you're just going to be given an assignment and told you have to turn it in on next day, and it's going to be up to you to break that stuff down. So block your time. Make appointments with yourself on your calendar and let the other people in your life know that this is what you're doing. And I understand that may be difficult given whatever season of life you're in, right? Things are different when you've got small kids, or when you're staying with your parents, or when you're caring for parents, or when you're in a new work situation. But figure out what it is that you can do, even if it's not ideal, right? They give you the old spiel of you should spend 3 hours outside class for every hour that you're in class. That's not always the case, and it's frankly not always going to be feasible. So think about what you can do, block that time, and commit to it. It's a strategy that people use with going to the gym, right? I was always told, put your workouts on your calendar. You've made that commitment to yourself. Nothing but an emergency can get in the way. And it sounds kind of corny, but it's a way to make sure that your time stays yours for what it needs to be. So in addition to blocking that time, you're going to need to structure the time. So let's say you, through whatever wrangling you've done, have figured out you have 3 hours on Sunday afternoon or Sunday night. You need a plan, right? Whatever it is, are you in a crisis situation where you've got a class that you're behind in and you really need to focus on catching that up? Okay, set aside most of that time to catch up that class, and then set aside time to do things for your other classes. I recommend setting up time throughout the week, if at all possible, at least, a half hour to go in, check in on your classes, see if you've gotten feedback, if there's anything you need to act on. Sometimes students will just log into Blackboard like the day before something is due rather than being engaged in the class throughout the week. And I get it. If you've got a schedule that works for you where you're doing English on Monday, Spanish on Tuesday, music on Wednesday, biology on Thursday, cool. But that also means you're logging into Blackboard, so you see your alerts and all that stuff. But sometimes people just sort of ghost for the week and come in the day before it's due and then find out, oh gosh, I didn't do this draft right. I needed to do this. Make sure that you are giving each of your classes time, and that you're structuring that time. So, let me block out 45 minutes to read, or let me block out 15 minutes to look ahead at the upcoming assignments and plot things on my calendar. Speaking of blocking that time and plotting things on your calendar, use a planner of some kind. I use a combination of an honest-to-goodness paper planner, and I use Google Calendar. There is a calendar feature in Blackboard, but it shows a lot of stuff and isn't always the world's most reliable thing. I do recommend using a paper planner. I don't have my favorite one. I didn't grab my planner before I got started. Here we go. I've got a fresh one to take out of the package to show you. And I'm not doing this to shill for a particular company, but I just wanted to show you something that's pretty cool. There are lots of good planners on the market. I use Panda planners. I really like them. I find them to be really effective. And when I started reusing planners again a couple years ago. This is the first one I tried. And I'll mention that they have a download free on their site. You don't even have to buy one to try it out. But it makes you be careful with your time. So over here, you do your priorities and you have your schedule for the day and your tasks. And one of the nice things about using a planner like this is it makes you be realistic. One of the problems I think most of us run into is we think we can do a lot more in a day than is actually feasible. Things come up. Work is a thing, families are a thing, life happens, and this is the most life happeningest year, I think, for many of us. So being realistic with yourself and setting up reasonable expectations and putting that stuff down in writing, making those commitments, blocking out the time, and putting down those tasks that you need to handle. Also, using a planner or some sort of a calendar lets you see the long view. And one of the things that you need to do with assignments in college and beyond in life in general is to break those things down. One of our big procrastination issues is that a lot of us, again, think we can do a lot more in a day than we can, and we just wait on something, right? If it's not urgent, we just wait. And one of the things we need to do is to bring some urgency into pieces of assignments. So in English 111, 112, a lot of these classes, I'll give you some preliminary deadlines where you have to have shown me sources or an outline, or we have to have met about something. It's not going to be like that in all of your classes. And you're going to have to break down assignments on your own. So maybe you've got a term paper and you need to say, hey, gosh, by October, I need to have settled on my topic and done this. By mid-November, I need to have done all of my research. By Thanksgiving, I need to have created my outline. And in the first week of December, I need to do my initial draft. Think about your projects, break them down, and put those commitments on your calendar. Make sure you don't get caught off guard. Also, update your calendar. Things change, as we have seen this year. Weather things happen, illnesses happen. We don't move in the pace in a class that we think we're going to, and instructors have to change dates. Make sure that as you get those notifications, you update them on your calendar so that you don't get confused or left behind. And build the habit of checking in. I mentioned, the importance of coming into Blackboard and looking at things. Make it a habit to check your calendar. Make it a habit to check in on your classes. Also, when you start to plan out that time and be consistent with how you're spending your time on school, you're going to get to a moment where everything's not a crisis. I know it sounds hard to believe, right? But if you're consistent with doing some work here and there, you're going to find there's a day that you log into a class and you maybe don't have anything to do. Well, you really do. That's a moment when you can read ahead. That's a moment when you can look forward at that assignment that's coming up and give it some thought. Even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes, do that. Those little bits and pieces will pay off, especially at the end of the semester when you are not as stressed. And then 2 things that seem to not be related to school and studying. First of all, this is going to sound funny. I'm a big fan of meditation. I find that having a little bit of meditation every day can help declutter the mind, can help you feel more centered, can help with anxiety, can help with productivity. I mentioned Panda Planner earlier. Another thing I'm fond of, I use the Headspace app. They do have a free version and they have a paid version. But give it a try, even if you're a person who thinks you can't meditate, just like my students who think they can't write. Part of it is building that up through practice. But it's amazing how calming that can be and how much clarity you can get from doing it. Plus, it's a great excuse to go hide somewhere for 5 or 10 minutes and take a little bit of time for yourself. To tie in with that, get some kind of exercise or time outside if you possibly can. Sitting inside in front of the computer all the time is not good for anybody. Moving around as you're able can definitely help you feel better, think better, clear the cobwebs from your brain. You can't be the best student if you don't take care of the rest of you. Your brain needs a happy body to be in, and exercise, meditation, all these things have tremendous mental benefits. And you can even feel those benefits from just a little bit. You don't have to run a marathon. You don't have to become one of those people who gets up at 5 a.m. to meditate for an hour before they, run 6 miles and go to work and save the world. You can do these things on a small scale and feel a lot better. So those are some suggestions. Block your time, structure your time, use some sort of a planner. I like to write and do some things electronically. Break down your assignments into manageable chunks. Build the habit of checking in and giving attention to each of your classes, whether you feel like they need it or not. Meditate, exercise, get some fresh air. So I hope that some of these tips are helpful for you this semester and beyond.